Welcome back to Kind Regards, the show. I was talking to my buddy and he had a couple of sort of long-term travel plans. You know, he wanted to go to South America, wanted to sort of explore that area and maybe book a one-way ticket to kind of live there for a while. And then he had a couple of retreats that he wanted to go to. He's deep into like movement practices and yoga and all kinds of stuff like that. And so he had like a retreat in Bali that would take a week, and he had this other thing somewhere else. And, you know, there were people that he knew were running these things. So he had a bit of a connection there, but it's all going to cost money. And he kind of looked at these short-term plans, looked at this long-term plan and went, oh, if I do the long-term, I'm going to sacrifice all this money. And well, like I'm going to have to save all this money, sacrifice all this time, not do these other retreats, blah, blah, blah. But if I do these short-term ones, then I can't do the long-term plans. And this brings up a big sort of dilemma that we all have, I think, when we're planning our lives, when we're facing decisions that will take us on this path over here or this path over here, right? The settled life for me, it was, I could get married and then stay where I was, or I could get married and buy a van and go on a extended traveling thing, which is what I chose to do, what we chose to do. And it's hard. How do we predict the future? How do we tell what is going to be a good decision for us? Kurt Vonnegut has the best piece of advice I've ever heard about this in a talk called The Shape of Stories. And he says that he's studied stories and the shape of them, right? You have maybe boy meets girl, where you start here and then they meet and they go up and various levels of intimacy, both of their lives improve, the trajectory of someone's life improves. And then usually there's some kind of a tragedy, right? Cinderella, is it Cinderella? With the slipper? I think so. But then she loses the chance to be with Prince Charming and then she gets it again. Whoo! And happiness out the wazoo. Or you have a tragedy, right? The shape of a tragedy is the downfall of a person. So you start up here and everything's really good, and then you slide down a series of bad events and you end down here. Oh no, so bad. There's, the hero's journey. It goes on and on. There's a whole bunch of these sort of shapes of stories that you can see in lots of different cultures, Vonnegut says. And he says one sort of lie unites all of these stories, and it is this. The character, Cinderella, for example, knows when things are good and she knows when things are bad. When she's having a hard time, she knows it's a bad time, and it is a bad time. And when things are good, when things are going swimmingly, and she's on top of the world, she knows it. And it's really straightforward. She's like, I'm happy, I'm in love, these are the good times. And she's right. Vonnegut proposes that this is not the way that life is. In life, we actually don't know when the good times are and when the bad times are. We might think that we do, but this is a life lie. This is a myth that we are invested in telling ourselves. And it can be instantly proven by the reflection on our own lives. Let's think back to a time that in the moment we were really enjoying. For me, there was a time at uni, I had no responsibilities. I just had to get a couple of assignments done each week or whatever. And those were pretty easy, I guess, or they weren't that stressful, especially because I wasn't doing them to a very high standard. And so I would just get this kind of work done. And then, I worked a pizza delivery job in the evening. So all day I could do whatever I wanted. And then 4 days a week, I worked as a delivery driver for cash, would clock off, go, sink some beers or something else, and have a good time with my buddies, and then go to bed, wake up, do it all again. Yeah, at the time, I thought I was living the dream. But looking back, how is it looking back? Were they the good times? I don't think they were, They were too easy. I wasn't pushing myself. I wasn't improving or progressing. I was quite stagnant. And similarly, we can look at the bad times, what we thought in the moment were the bad times, the really hard times. Some of the hardest things I've done in my life are really long walks or, a meditation retreat where you can't talk, you can't read, you can't do all this stuff. I've done videos about this, Vipassana retreats, if you want to look them up. Vipassana, it'll be on Dhamma, DHAMMA.org. Vipassana Meditation International or whatever they're called. But yeah, they're really intensive sort of meditation retreats, 10 days, like I said, just meditating all the time, 10 and a half hours a day of meditation. that was really hard. There's a lot of pain when you're sitting. It was relentlessly hard. Psychologically, it was really difficult too. And I look back on those times and I go, I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like, that was so useful. I learned so much, blah, blah, blah. And so this is the point. The point is, sometimes the good times turn out to be the bad times, and sometimes the bad times turn out to be the good times. And this is looking back. In the moment, it can be just as hard, if not harder, to know when the good and the bad times are. And then think about the uncertainty of the future. It doesn't even exist. It's just in our heads. Then we have to try and figure out what the good times and the bad times are going to be in the future. Vonnegut says this is impossible. We cannot do this. We cannot predict the future. Not going to happen. We can't even understand the present. That's how confusing the good and the bad times are. And so we can't know what choices to make, right? We ultimately, what this does is it equalizes all the choices. By quitting your job and starting a new job, that is the same, you have the same likelihood of that being a good thing as staying at your job, because you don't know what's going to happen. You just don't. The new job might be terrible. The new job might be a dream. Staying at this job, you might get a promotion in a week. You have no idea. And none of us do. And so if all options are equalized by this unknowing of the future, and also by the fact that we barely even know when the good and the bad times are, what the suffering that we're going through now is going to mean later. You know, all that time that I spent single, I think, yeah, I was really lonely. I was really sad. I wanted companionship, but I wasn't willing to go on dates or, you know, go on Tinder or whatever. And so I was sad and I was lonely for a long time. But I learned so much about myself in that time. I don't think I could have met my wife and fallen in love with her without going through that. So this is what I'm talking about. And if the choices of the future are equalized by this, I don't know what it's going to turn out to be. I don't know what the good times are and the bad times are. If that is true, then what is in our control? If all options are equal, what is in our control? It is gratitude and appreciation for whatever we're going through. What we can control is our level of awareness. Instead of staking our happiness on some future moment, if this plan works out great, then I'll be happy. And if it works out terribly, then I'll be sad. What we can do, and this is what Vonnegut's uncle was really good for, he would sit back when something was nice and he was having a good time, and he would say, if this isn't good, I don't know what is. And it's as simple as that. We can control our awareness, what we bring our attention to with practice, right? And we can control our gratitude and our appreciation. What we have right now is somebody's dream life. What we have right now, for most of us, we couldn't have imagined 10 years ago, right? I couldn't have imagined being in such a great relationship, being in a van, traveling the world, you know. It's amazing. Making YouTube videos for people, the books that I've read, it's so great. But even if you don't have this, I'm not saying you need to reach that threshold to be happy, but to have my health, to know that I'm, healthy and okay, and I'm, I don't feel pain every day. This is something that you can be really grateful for, really glad for. I can see trees. I go on a walk every day. These are things that you can enjoy and say, if this isn't good, I don't know what is. Wielding, therefore, the freedom that we actually have, which is how we relate to the world. The world is a swirling mess, you could say, a chaotic, interaction of a million different forces. It's one huge swirling thing, and we're in it, and we can enjoy it, or we can stake our happiness on things going the way we want them to. If I don't know that these are the good times, then what is there to appreciate? I feel like these are the bad times, therefore there's nothing to appreciate. These are all false roads that lead to unnecessary suffering. What we can do is cultivate our awareness, cultivate our gratitude. You can do this through intentional practices. I suppose the thing is like, oh yeah, great idea, Will, but how are we going to do that? Regular gratitude journaling is sick for this. I used to do it. I don't do it anymore, but I might do it after this video. Every night when I do my little journaling thing, my little recap of the day and plan for tomorrow, I used to have like 5 things that I'm grateful for, or 10 I think I did. And so I would just write out, I'd be like, yo, I'm stoked that I got to have like a hot coffee in the morning when I wanted it. That's great. Like, I got to decide when I got to have a delicious hot beverage. That's sick. Great food. I ate delicious food today. I got some sun. I got to exercise. I had enough willpower to meditate that day. Like, all this stuff that I was really pumped on. By doing this every day, you realize, like, oh, there's so much that I'm grateful for. And then next time you're having a coffee, you're like, oh, damn, I'm probably going to write this in my journal later. I better appreciate it now while it's here too. Not just in retrospect. I'm right here. I've said this before about practicing good thoughts. By practicing, gratitude, the gratitude thoughts pop up in more and more moments, and we get to enjoy gratitude and appreciation in more and more moments. Also, cultivating a good awareness practice through meditation or slow walking meditations, or doing anything that cultivates emptiness, stillness, yoga, tai chi, and on the list goes. This will all help us to sort of get back to the present moment, release our attachments to everything going the way we want, and instead be like, yo, this is sick. Like, I'm recording a video, I'm a little bit sweaty, but that's pretty sick because look, the sun is shining. Like, if this isn't good, I don't know what is, right? That's the crux of the thing here. But yeah, I hope this is helpful. I hope that this like speaks to you and is a good thing for you to hear right now. Yeah, thanks very much for watching. I appreciate your attention. I know that there's a lot of things you could be doing, but I appreciate that you're doing this, and I hope that it works. I hope that it's useful and enjoyable and good for you to be here. I've got a Substack link where I write articles, sort of more lengthy articles about similar sort of topics. And I've also got a YouTube and a Spotify link so you can listen to the content or watch as you desire. But yeah, thanks very much. Have a great day. Take care. Thanks.